Okay, I think that we can start now. Good day and good afternoon to all. My name is Natalia Amelina. I am a Senior National Project Officer in Education. I'm working for UNESCO Institute for Information Technologies in Education, and today I am honored to moderate our breakout session, which is titled From Something on Mind to Something in Kind, EdTech for Inclusive Change in Education. Today, we will discuss challenges and concerns related to online and distance education of the most vulnerable groups of students. First of all, we will focus on persons with disabilities. Let me inform you that learners with disabilities experience a variety of barriers in education, and first of all, in access to education. For instance, in the crisis like COVID-19, persons with disabilities are less often provided with personal assistance and adequately trained teachers. More time and resources are required for students with disabilities to actively participate in learning. This includes continuous internet access, sufficient equipment, and specially designed training materials. And for another thing, many educators lack ICT skills and knowledge. This is also a very important challenge. So today we have six speakers and six panelists in our breakout session. They will make presentations and we will learn from practice and theory about such challenges and concerns. In addition to it, I will let you know that we will learn from 3 country cases, including Botswana, China, and the Russian Federation. Let me ask our participants who are watching and listening to this session. Let me pay your attention that, first of all, after a short introduction, we will have 6 presentations and 6 speeches of our panelists. And after that, we will have an opportunity to discuss the questions and challenges related to the topic. So please keep your questions until the end of all presentations. And please use a special box which is titled Questions and Answers. You can find it on your menu panel to provide us your important questions. Please do it in English language if possible. And we will do our best to answer your questions. And also, if you have something to say, please raise your hand and we will try to provide you opportunity to speak. So I think that from my side, it's all. And I would like to now start with presentations and to say that we will have presentations up to 12 minutes. I would recommend from 10 to 12 minutes for each presenter. And we will keep questions from the audience, from our participants, until the end of all presentations. And it's my great pleasure to introduce to you our, I would say, big partner, Mr. Dhruv Patel, who is a founder and chief executive officer of the Nisai Group from the United Kingdom. Dhruv, the screen is yours. Please start your presentation.
Talia, thank you very much, and good morning, everybody. Thanks very much for inviting me here, and I'd like to just share with you what we've been doing. So let me know whether you can see this. Okay, so oops, start there. So what I'd like to talk about is distance, how we've been using the distance learning for children with disabilities and during and after COVID-19. So I'd like to take you something. So before that, I'd like to give you a background about us and the context. We have nearly 25 years of working in this environment, and we have been looking at how the young people work and learn through use of a blended approach. So as NISI Group, like I said, 25 years we've been going on. We've been working in not only in the UK, but now we're working much more in further apart in Asia, in Europe, in the Middle East, in India, elsewhere. We also look on inclusivity. Our focus is on inclusivity, but also more importantly is to create pathways for our learners, because if we create the pathways, then they need to be economically and socially independent as well. As Natalia said, we have a very strong partnership with Unesco IITE. As part of the UK, we are also approved by the UK Department of Education. Our business is based and group is based on focused on longevity, consistency, and sustainability. And that's the most important thing, because you really need to, with the kind of young people we work with, we need to give them that consistency. We believe that everyone has equal value and should have access to high quality education around the world. It's about getting that part of the Sustainable Development Goals of 2030. It's very, very important that we get it right. The context during COVID-19. So if you look at what has been happening, over 1.5 billion students and families have been significantly affected by school closures. Even in the UK, we started from September, our schools, and a number of schools have not come back, or the children haven't come back. We can see that this is continuing even when the schools open. This does not take into account those who are marginalized or disadvantaged, or we call invisible. The school closures occurred in 188 countries across the world as of April 2020. Up to 80% of the world learners have been kept out of institutions. 75% of the students who cannot be reached by remote learning came from rural areas or belong to poorest households. SDG 4 says it aims to ensure inclusivity, equitable quality education, and promote lifelong learning opportunities. And COVID-19 hasn't really made that happen so far, and we need to look at what's got to be done. Consequences with those with disabilities is very high. There's an increase in mental health, anxiety, and personal well-being, loss of structure to their day, lack of consistency and stability, which we're seeing, loss of socializations due to lockdown and shielding. More importantly, what we have seen is the loss of knowledge. It's not the loss of knowledge, but it's the regression which has happened. So when in normal times, when you have a 1 month holiday or 6 weeks holiday, the students regress by at least 1 month. During this situation with 6 months or longer, the regression is much more higher. There's a long-term impact and potential loss of opportunities for this group of children. The relationships with peers have been weakened because they're not meeting, and additional pressures on parents to be teachers and support. We support learning through innovative education that is accessible and affordable. How do we do that? Let's look at technology. First of all, technology needs to be cross-platform. It needs to be accessible. We need to make sure that telecom companies and telecoms can get to those access. Great technology does not guarantee great quality teaching. Technology is there to support education. It's a bridge to learning. There needs to be a robust assessment and monitoring element. It needs to be user-friendly. It needs to be able to support teachers in developing the whole child, the whole learner, not just one specific part of it. It needs to be a complementary, not a replacement. And also it needs to be a part of a wider strategy. I just wanted to run through a case study of what we have done here in the NISA Virtual Academy. First of all, for 25 years, what have we learned? Learners should be safeguarded in a secure environment. Lessons need to be a blend of synchronized and asynchronous. It doesn't need to be just self-paced, it needs to be both. Teachers need to be trained to deliver this effectively. Learning needs to be inclusive. You just don't have people sitting there. You need to bring them all. Lessons and content need to be engaging. Class sizes need to be small enough to allow support. It's just not about technology, it's about humans. Process for assessment and progress tracking. How do you know the learners have learned? How do you assess them? It's very important. There needs to be socialization for learners and support their well-beings. We need to make sure the marginalized and vulnerable learners can all access this. Our students, displaced through conflict or wars, disengaged, challenging circumstances, disadvantaged, barriers to learning and special educational needs, disabilities, physical and mental. On our special educational needs and our disability learners, we have children on autistic spectrum, Asperger's, attention, ADHD disorder, global delay, fatigue, chronic fatigue syndrome, mental health, and social anxiety. So you can see we cover a range. And more now, we're starting to see mental health becoming a big issue in here. Creating education facilities that are inclusive and effective. That's what the learning environment and technology gives us. So what do we do? We need recovery programs to engage learners. It's about those learners who have actually regressed. How do we need to bring them back to a place? It's not about giving the same. Now we need to relook at the curriculum. Project-based learning, very important. We need to move from knowledge-based curriculum to competency-based. We need to have qualifications to support academic and TVET pathways. Resources can be used but that are not bandwidth heavy, because a lot of, even in developed countries, the bandwidth can be restricted, especially if there's a large number of people using it. So we need to make sure we have resources that can be used effectively. We need to have smaller classes. We don't need to have, just because we got a technology like Zoom, have a complete broadcast. We need to engage them and get them small classes. Plus, we should have multiple communications channels open to encourage student interactions. So we have to have a structure. A lot of our learners need to have a structure, timetable, homework, assignments. They need to have self-paced activities to develop, extracurricular activities to encourage engagement and social part, ongoing assessments, formative assessments, not summative at the end of the year, but formative assessments should be doing. But more importantly, sessional, understanding and measure on short term. We have NISA learning zones, hubs, a blended approach, physical settings. In Vietnam, we got a number of settings like this. In Japan, we are creating a number of settings like this. They are small community-based settings where we actually have students coming in to learn, but they also can study from home. It provides the social and well-being as well. But it's again, we're looking at promoting the 4 C's of the 21st century skills: creativity, collaboration, critical thinking, and communications. And this zone could be anywhere. It could be on a site, on the school. It could be in a community center. It could be anywhere. So to summarize, education needs to be secure when considering data governance. The data is very important. It needs to be secure. We must have a blended and personalized approach. Technology allows you to put the learner in the center of learning. It should not be considered as the same way as we do traditional learning. Have a proven pedagogy. Contain appropriate and engaging content. Be accessible by all hardware, internet, and infrastructure, but be cross-platform, trackable from initial assessment throughout their journey. Be learner-centric and meet their specific needs. It should be outcome-based. Online should not be a substandard offer. And involve quality teacher training, invest and upskilling members of staff. Very, very critical. So for me, that's the end of my presentation. And thank you very much. I'll be here for the questions later on. Thank you, Victoria.
Thank you, Dhruv. Thank you very much for your great presentation, and thank you for highlighting sustainable development goals. It's really becoming more and more important in our days during the pandemic, and it can be a kind of bridge for and a strategy for creating inclusive environment for students with disabilities. I'm also very glad to hear that you have clearly stated about the impact impact of pandemic on students with disabilities. It's very important to understand real cases, real challenges in this environment. And I know that you have real practices in many countries. So thank you for sharing this experience with us. And let me remind to our participants that one of the aims of our breakout session is also to raise awareness among the specialists on these very important challenges and issues. So thank you, Dhruv, very much. And now we are moving forward, and our next participant, I'm very glad to introduce Mr. Renato Operzi, who is a senior consultant of the UNESCO International Bureau of Education. He is from Uruguay. Renato, the screen is yours. Please. You are muted. Please unmute yourself. Yes, great.
Yes, right now, yes. Thank you very much for this opportunity, for allowing IB to share its thinking on inclusive education. I really agree with what has been said by Dhruv, Pavel. I mean, that's the idea that inclusive education is at the core front of any changes in education is of utmost relevance. Let me start by mentioning what Unesco has been referring to inclusive education since 2017, where we have this new UNESCO policy guideline on equity and inclusion. And the definition of inclusion is much more in the sense that has been said by the presenter before, that inclusion is a process. It's a process that helps overcome barriers that limits the presence, the participation, and the achievement of learners. But we are saying that inclusion is a never-ending process. It's an evolving process that implies overcoming all types of barriers coming from inside and outside the educational systems. And also UNESCO defined very clearly equity. Equity is about ensuring that there is a concern with fairness, with justice. I mean, the idea that education is also about social justice in the sense that providing each learner an opportunity, so that the education of all learners, regardless of their context, circumstances, styles, affiliations, traditions, is seen, is visualized as having equal importance. I mean, we frame IB within UNESCO, frame the idea of inclusion in this sense. I mean, the idea that inclusion is overcoming barriers, and equity is about fairness and social justice. Let me move to the second one, if it is possible here. What we have seen at IB today, that the COVID-19 posed three big challenges to educational systems. First, the vulnerability challenge. That means that the COVID-19 make more visible, more understandable, the strong interaction, the strong interplay between socioeconomic, culture, and educational factors affecting schools, communities, households, and families. I mean, what we are trying to see today, that we are taking a more close, a more multidimensional look to the links between social inclusion, between educational inclusion and inclusive education. I mean, this is a very interactive relationship. There is no education, there is no inclusiveness in education about social inclusion, but it's not sufficient social inclusion to have inclusive education. I mean, there is a strong links, and what we are understanding from this crisis is that the vulnerability is much more complex and it's much more multidimensional than before, that we used to see before. Secondly, the curricular, pedagogical, and teaching challenges that for IB is very important. I mean, transitioning from understanding education only a face-to-face delivery to broaden the understanding of education, its content, its strategies, its scope, its implication, including diversity of combination of hybrid or blended modes of educative learning and assessing. IB is talking about an LS initiative that is trying to work out a framework for countries that combine, that give them a series of clues and orientation to understand this combination of education, because it's not about technology as complementary to in-person activities or to face-to-face activity. It's like a combination. It's the continuation of the process and the complementarity between in-person and distance education. And also the multi-layer role challenge. I mean, this COVID-19 has questioned us in terms of the roles of the schools. I mean, what's the status of the school? What's the role of the schools? And also about the engagement, the tasks, the responsibilities, and the connections among learners, teachers, principals, families, communities. We are now in a moment where we are rethinking the roles. The role of the families, because some people said that families now are coaches of learning. The role of learners, because learners are more autonomous, have more possibility to develop their own thinking. Teachers are more empowered to look for solutions and to address challenges. So we're in a period of rethinking roles. So now, what are for us 3 main messages on inclusive education that reflects this idea of UNESCO that we have been talking about inclusion and equity? First, recognizing or raising awareness, as Natalia has said, that inclusiveness in education entails a renewed mode of understanding, dividing reciprocal connections between education and other social policies. There is a big binding connection between education and social policies, and understand the role of education. Education is a social policy, it's a cultural policy, it's an economic policy, it's a citizenship policy, and it's a community policy. So we understand the multidimensional roles of education as policy. Secondly, further advocating that inclusive education is a driver of inclusiveness in education that entails, as Drew has mentioned, the appreciation of each learner as unique and special, immersed in particular contexts and circumstances. I mean, the traditional way of seeing inclusion was in the paradigm of special education. Some students are special. Today we understand that all students are special and not all students are unique, and that maybe we should not talk about disabilities, but we should talk about students and learners with different types of capacities. And it's the responsibility, the ethical responsibility of the educational system to look for a solution, to look for a tailored, personalized curriculum to respond to the needs, to the specific needs of each learner. Thirdly, inclusive education entails that the curriculum and the pedagogy, as well as the teaching and learning practices, are sustained on the idea that the personalization of education, they tailorize the curricula and the pedagogy to the needs and expectation of each learner understood as unique, is an effective way to ensure inclusion. What we are saying is that there is no inclusion without personalization of education, and there is no personalization of education without understanding the specificity and the uniqueness of each learner. Now, we believe that this COVID-19 has been said many times by UNESCO, other organizations, different people in different academia, in the policy-making level, in the ministry level, etc., that the COVID-19 is a window of opportunities. It's a window of opportunity to strengthen inclusive education, to really put in the spotlight, put in the mainstream inclusive education. Because inclusive education can be of utmost relevance to broaden the understanding that there are different complementary learning opportunities and spaces and pathways to accommodate to diversity of learner sensibilities, contexts, and circumstances. I mean, inclusive education opens us to understand the learners in different space learning. That's learning anywhere, anytime. Secondly, inclusive education reinforces, as we have said, the personalization of education through the curriculum and the pedagogy, as well as the teaching, learning, and assessment practices, further combining, integrating, and establishing synergies between in-person and distance activities. Thirdly, inclusive education provides a framework, a conceptual framework to understand the progression of the learner and the flow of the learning processes in hybrid digital modes, overcoming institutional, curricular, pedagogical, and teacher barriers. As we have said, inclusion is about removing barriers. What we are saying today here that we have to understand the educational cycle as not as discontinuity. There should not be discontinuity between primary and secondary education or between secondary and higher education. There has to be a progression of the learner. And what's most important is not the educational provision or the educational level, but to put on the center how the learner can progress, understanding their specificity and their uniqueness. So let me say what we think from IB. How can inclusive education and educational technology can reinforce each other? Inclusive education can contribute to strengthening educational technology as a tool, as our previous presenter has said, as a tool for ensuring personalized education, learning and assessment, attentive to the singularity of each learner. The solution is not technology. The solution is to have a solid, robust curriculum and pedagogical proposal that include technology as a driver of inclusion, but not as an end in itself. Educational technology can be more efficient to addressing challenges posed by diversity of learners' expectations and needs, sustaining the principle of Unesco that every learner matters and matters equally. And educational technology broaden the understanding of the impacts of inclusive education as provide evidence on how different types of technology. We have seen today that the old ones, all the new ones technology, radio, TV, internet, messaging, can be more or less effective with regard to facilitating learning opportunities and process, as well as to the relevance and improvement of learning outcomes. So inclusive education also provides us very strong clues of how different types of technology can work in regards to different types of learners in different contexts. And let me finalize by talking about what from IB, Unesco, under the leadership of Mr. Ido, is putting today in the forefront of Unesco. 5 priorities for inclusive education. First, the idea that we have to rethink the curricula. We have to rethink the curriculum as local. The curriculum is not globalized, it's not local. It's a local process that reflects social imaginaries and engage diversity of stakeholders coming from inside and outside the educational system. I mean, curriculum is not something free of value, free of ideas, free of utopia. Curriculum reflects what type of society we want to construct, what type of society we want to forge. So we have to reconnect the discussion of curriculum to social imaginaries and engage different stakeholders, because a society has to have the diversity of different type of stakeholders engaging and connecting to education. Secondly, education systems taking responsibility for facilitating learning anywhere, anytime. Learning takes place everywhere. It's not about distance or in-person education, it's about the combination of distance and in-person education. It's about non-formal and formal education working together. I mean, the barriers have been overcome and we have learning taking place anywhere, anytime. Thirdly, a strong focus on learners' preparedness, competencies for a better, sustainable, and prosperous future. If we don't change education, our learners are not going to have a future. So we have to put into the core of the curricula and the pedagogy, preparing learners for a better, sustainable, and prosperous future. And let me finalize by saying, tuning inclusive education and technology to diversity of learners and teachers and to vulnerable persons, groups, and communities. Try to look for a better match between inclusiveness in education and technology to address the diversity of learners. And finally, broaden the opportunities for teachers and learners to engage, to reconnect, and empathic, timely, and quality feedbacks through in-person and distant activities. We all know that in education, the big difference is a quality feedback from the teacher to the learner, but also from the learner to the teachers. Thank you very much, my dear colleagues. I finish now.
Yes, thank you so much, Renato, for your very interesting presentation. And thank you for reminding us about the priorities of inclusive agenda. I would say that information and communication technologies nowadays provide unlimited power and opportunities for persons with disabilities. But at the same time, such technologies can arise specific barriers for persons with disabilities. And first of all, in terms of access to education and even in assessment of skills of persons with disabilities. And let me thank Renato for mentioning about curriculum changes and necessity of thinking about this very important part. And I would say that International Bureau of Education is very strong in terms of curriculum development, and we rely on our future collaboration for development specific curriculum for persons with disabilities in the age of artificial intelligence. Thank you for this very interesting presentation. And let's move to our next participant. I'm very glad to introduce to you Mr. Brian Itaye Mutimbankyoka from Lim Kok Wing University of Creative Technology. Brian is from Botswana, and he will share with us experience from this continent and this particular country. Brian, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
That's great. Yes, we can hear you, but we cannot see you, unfortunately. Can you please show your video and please share your presentation?
Thank you very much. I switched off the video because of connectivity challenges.
Oh, yes, you can stop in this case your video. Please do it as appropriate. And please kindly share your presentation. The screen is yours.
Do you see my...
Not yet.
My screen now?
Not yet.
Does everybody have my screen?
No. Probably I can ask Galina or Edward. I just have resent the presentation to my colleagues, and probably they can share their screens and demonstrate your presentation if you need some assistance.
Do you see it now?
No, unfortunately, no.
Oh.
Could I ask Galina to, or something was on the screen? Yes, now I can see. I don't know who is sharing the screen. Galina?
You can see it?
Brian, yes. Thank you. Thank you, Brian. We can see it. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you very much to everybody, and I hope everybody hears me loud and clear as well. Let me also take this opportunity to thank my predecessors who have been talking about very interesting issues that have been posed by COVID-19 in the various areas. I'll talk from a Lim Kok Wing perspective, and I'll also speak from our experience as Lim Kok Wing University. Let me probably give a quick background of Lim Kok Wing University, which bears its origins from Malaysia, and for the past decade now has grown into establish itself and footprint in Asia, Africa, and Europe. In Africa, Lim Kok Wing University has established its campuses in Botswana, Lesotho, Eswatini, formerly Swaziland, Sierra Leone, Namibia, Uganda, and very soon in Rwanda by the end of the year 2020 and in 2021. What you'll find is that Lim Kok Wing in all its campuses across the continent supports all students with disabilities, and the university believes that in all the programs that it offers customized. It has a customized approach into considering the needs of both the nation and the communities. Let me also hasten to say at this juncture that as a university, Lim Kok Wing trains graduates who are very talented, and it is in line with the philosophy of the founder president, Dato Tan Sri Paduka Dato Lim Kok Wing, whose vision is for education for all, and in line with the SDG goals and aims of inclusive and equitable education, and in the same spirit as promoting long life learning. The university also brought fresh new perspective to combine teaching methodologies and suitable methods that includes teaching with students with disabilities. Now, you probably see some of my slides here, but let me go and say, since establishing itself in Botswana and creating the Department of Special Needs, Limpopo University to date has actually graduated more than 416 students with different disabilities or special needs. And currently the university has more than 102 students who are drawn from within Botswana, the country, and also from the SADC countries, and mainly also from other places like in both China. We have now students who have joined us who are being taught within the university. But let's now go to the topical issue which we are gathered here today to discuss, looking at the current challenges that have been brought by COVID-19, and especially to students with disabilities. We find that we are caught as a university with the protocols that have been put together, social distancing and reduction in interactions. Now, what are the major challenges that we have seen as a university? Number one, it came as a shock, not only to the learners, but also to the students. Shock in what way? Shock in that it was a great shift from the traditional method of learning, where interactions were very possible between lecturers and students. And hence we found that the pandemic created this shock that created an element of uncertainty in terms of when it was going to end, what was going to happen. And this impacted now on the learners or the students. We also understand and we also see that teaching students with disabilities requires extra care, it requires extra time, and it requires the support. This support because of the advent of or the coming in of or the outbreak of COVID-19, we realized that this was greatly reduced. It also posed as a challenge now, not only to the students, but also to the lecturers who are now used to assisting their students to make sure that they are able to learn and study in their different fields of studies that are drawn from the 7 different faculties that we have. And this really was or created a challenge to the learning environment. Secondly, we may say that the COVID-19 posed a challenge in that for every student who has disabilities, extra time was needed for them in classes, extra attention was given by the lecturers, but because of the strict guidelines of COVID-19, of social distancing, and to some extent isolation, this brought a very disturbing situation to the learners. And now when we look at how our facilities are set up, if a classroom had a total number of students, let's say 40, for example,
Brian, we cannot hear you. Brian, something wrong with connection. I cannot see Brian is online. He was brought out from our session, it seems to me. Okay, I hope he will connect again. Brian, can you hear me?
Brian, he seems to be.
No, he's with us, but he's muted, but frozen, probably frozen. Okay. Okay, probably we will move to the next speaker because of the time limit, and probably we can come back to Brian. Let's see. Unfortunately, he has not finalized his presentation, but it was nice to learn about African experience, about the experience of Lim Kok Wing University. And just before I will give the floor to the next speaker, I just want to say that we have a hope that we will have a special project together with Lim Kok Wing University in partnership with them in the African region, which will cover 3 countries. And we hope that we will also contribute to development of inclusive education by means of information and communication technologies in African region. It's a very pity that Brianna is not with us, but okay, let's move to the next participant, next presenter. I am honored to give the floor and to introduce the presentation of Professor Wong, who is the Vice President of Shanghai Open University, but due to the some unexpected circumstances, he wasn't able to join our session, and his presentation will be will be provided by Ms. Meng Ying, who is an international cooperative researcher and international project coordinator of Shanghai Open University. Meng Ying, do you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, I'm going to share the screen with you guys.
Yes, please.
Is it okay?
Yes, we can see it. Thank you.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Meng Ying Cao, come from Shanghai Open University, and it's my honor to participate in today's session. I will make the presentation on behalf of our Vice President Wong, and the theme of the presentation today is Shanghai Online and Open Education. Don't let students with special needs fall behind. A few months ago, Shanghai Open University cooperated with East China Normal University and the Unesco IITE to publish the report Online and Open Education in Shanghai, the emergency response and innovative practice during the COVID-19 pandemic. As described in the report from the government to schools, Shanghai took action to ensure educational continuity. For example, Shanghai Education TV developed the specific broadcasting content to help students understand the pandemic containment measures and actions. So, and for preschool education in Shanghai, many kindergartens have developed the health information alert systems to record students' health conditions. During the pandemic, family and parents play the major role in the home education. And Shanghai Education developed the class in the air using the internet to provide the scientific parenting guidance. And also the Shanghai Special Education Online offers rehabilitation and learning programs for children with physical handicaps to ensure that no one is left behind. Many international and local Shanghai teachers collaborated to provide quality preschool education resources for parents during the pandemic. And there are some challenges to online education during the pandemic, like how to support distance learning in low-income families, how to protect the mental health of students during the pandemic, and how to provide the personalized support for students with special needs. In the pandemic time, Shanghai Education took some actions to support low-income families, such as providing personal devices and mobile data to facilitate students' online learning for immigrant families who had gone back to their hometown with neither devices nor the access to the internet. Their schools provide the one-on-one catch-up lessons when students back to schools. And in order to advance the teaching quality in the remote poverty areas, the Shanghai Teacher Training Center of the Shanghai Municipal Education Commission organizes the training courses for teachers in undeveloped areas. And they sharing the Shanghai experience, the quality classroom teaching models, and promote teachers to participate in teachers' learning community. So since the students have been studying at home for a long time during the pandemic, how to ensure their mental health is so important. And Shanghai Education provides several services for students, such as a 24-hour psychological hotline to help with questions raised with teachers, students, and parents. And also they organize the webinars and provide online courses and resources to help students and parents maintain the mental health during the pandemic. Online learning was especially difficult for students in special schools because the individual needs of each student is varies. To meet this challenge, the schools in Shanghai created a personalized curricula that can make full use of students' family environment and provides the guidance to parents on for facilitating their teaching and learning. And Shanghai Open University was founded in 1960s, and it has 40 branches and teaching centers to provide students with comprehensive learning support services. And it provides degree and non-degree training for students with special needs, including the educational services for persons with disabilities, the elderly, farmers, and prisoners. Such as the SOU have the feature schools, the Pusheng campus of SOU, and the Institute of Education for the Disabled. And Shanghai Parents School invite well-known experts in family education to provide parents with professional guidance through TV programs and live courses. And the parents can leave messages and interact with experts online when taking classes. And experts will answer questions raised by parents. The screen, as we see on the screen, like this slide, the screen reading software is a tool that help blind people access the internet. They can send and receive emails through the reading software. And in order for that, each individual has an equal opportunity for educational progress remains a challenge worldwide. Sustainable Development Goal 4 on education as the Education 2030 framework for action, inclusion, and equity as laying the foundations for quality education. For the inclusive education, we need to take some steps like ensuring the construction of learning resources, provide the basic equipment for online learning, and provide the high quality open online courses resources for them. And also improving teachers' professional skills, encourages the teachers to share their best practice in the online teaching, and also like the personalized technical support using the technology, educational technology to provide their better learning environment. with the organization of UNESCO IITE, Shanghai Open University is willing to cooperate with educational institutions worldwide to contribute a better future of education. Thank you.
Dear Menging, thank you so much for your presentation on behalf of Professor Wong. It was really very important and deep and interesting. And we're very honored to have partnership with Shanghai Open University in China. And thank you for sharing with us experience from your country. And especially, I would like to pay attention of our participants about your experience in education TV and broadcasting, because such tools, such experience are extremely important during the closures of the schools, and especially for those who are living in the rural areas. It seems to be it's very important to have such a tool in some countries. So thank you very much for your presentation. And we will move forward, and our next speaker will present experience from the Russian Federation. Let me introduce to you Ms. Yulia Sachko, who is the Vice Director of the Department of the State Policy in the area of Children's Rights Defense and Head of the Unit of Education of Children with Special Needs, Ministry of Education of the Russian Federation. We are lucky to have you, Yulia. The floor is yours, and let me inform the participants that an interpreter will help Yulia with translation of presentation. Please.
Здравствуйте, уважаемые коллеги. Благодарим за возможность поделиться опытом Российской Федерации по организации дистанционного обучения школьников с особыми образовательными потребностями.
Good morning, dear colleagues. Thank you for the opportunity to share the experience of the Russian Federation in organizing distance learning for school children with special educational needs.
Около 10% обучающихся в России составляют обучающиеся с особыми образовательными потребностями. На дому получают образование около 108 тысяч школьников с особыми образовательными потребностями, в том числе с использованием дистанционных технологий.
About 10% of those students in Russia are students with special educational needs. About 108,000 of those school children are educated at home, including using distance learning technologies.
Слышно? Слышно, Наталья? Слышно меня?
Да, теперь слышно. Спасибо.
Спасибо. Организация образования с использованием дистанционных технологий используется в России достаточно давно, в том числе для обучающихся с особыми образовательными потребностями. Традиционно в таком формате они могли получить качественное профессиональное образование в колледжах и университетах. Для этого образовательные организации создавали электронные ресурсы и программное обеспечение, а обучающиеся за свой счет самостоятельно покупали технику и подключались к сети интернет.
Studying using distance technologies has been done in Russia for a long time, including for education of students with special educational needs. Traditionally, in this format, they could receive a quality professional education in colleges and universities. Educational organizations had to find electronic resources and software to do that, and students at their own expense bought equipment and connected to the internet.
Yulia, you are muted. Включи, да.
С 2009 по 2012 годы в рамках государственной программы образования за счет государства 25 тысяч школьников с особыми образовательными потребностями, преимущественно с нарушениями опорно-двигательного аппарата, слуха и зрения, были обеспечены компьютерной техникой и доступом к интернету. для получения образования в дистанционном формате. Также в каждом из 85 субъектов Российской Федерации были созданы центры дистанционного обучения, один центр на субъект, и оборудовано 22 тысячи мест рабочих для педагогов. А для организации качественного дистанционного обучения были проведены обучающие мероприятия для педагогов и родителей.
From 2009 to 2012, within the framework of the state program education, at the expense of the state itself, 25,000 school children with disabilities, mainly with impairments of the musculoskeletal system, hearing and vision impairments, have been provided with computers and internet access to receive education in a distance format. Also, in each of 85 regions of the Russian Federation, distance learning centers have been created, one center per region, and 22,000 workplaces for teachers have been equipped. To organize high-quality distance learning instructional skills workshops have been held for teachers and parents.
В 2013-2019 годах субъекты Российской Федерации самостоятельно поддерживали систему дистанционного образования. Тем обучающимся, кто после школы решил продолжить образование в колледже или в университете, оставляли ранее полученную технику для получения профессионального образования в дистанционном формате. Те обучающиеся, которые после школы никуда не шли учиться или получали профессиональное образование очно, сдавали технику обратно в центры дистанционного обучения и ее передавали следующему школьнику.
The regions of the Russian Federation independently supported the distance learning system from 2013 till 2019. Those students who decided to continue their education after school and admit to college or university, they were left with the previously given equipment for professional education in a distance format. Those students who did not go to study anywhere after school or received full-time vocational education handed over the equipment back to the distance learning centers. It was passed on to the next student.
Параллельно с этим процессом субъекты Российской Федерации продолжали оснащать новые рабочие места школьников с особыми образовательными потребностями и педагогов, повышать квалификацию специалистов.
Simultaneously with this process, the regions of the Russian Federation continued to equip new workplaces for school children with special educational needs and teachers to improve the qualification of relative specialists.
Сегодня, в том числе из-за пандемии, ситуация меняется. Никогда ранее дистанционное обучение не было приоритетным, но с марта 2020 года система образования России, равно как и всего мира, была вынуждена уйти на дистанционное обучение. Перед нами встала непростая задача организации дистанционного обучения не просто отдельных обучающихся с особыми образовательными потребностями, но вообще всех обучающихся.
Distance learning has never been a priority, but since March 2020, the education system has been forced to move forward distance learning. We were faced with the difficult task to organizing distance learning not for just individual students with special educational needs, but for all students in the whole country.
Поэтому в ближайшее время мы планируем в рамках новой версии национального проекта образования развивать дистанционное обучение по 3 основным направлениям. Прежде всего, это развитие инфраструктуры. Внедрение новых технических средств обучения, а это рабочие места школьников и педагогов, должны отвечать самым современным техническим требованиям, должны быть подключены к высокоскоростному интернету, а при необходимости рабочие места должны быть оборудованы специальными техническими средствами для обучающихся с особыми образовательными потребностями. Кроме того, мы планируем создать федеральную цифровую образовательную платформу для школьников с особыми образовательными потребностями.
Therefore, we plan to develop distance learning in 3 main areas in the future, all within the framework of the national project education. First of all, we're talking about development of infrastructure. The previously purchased equipment is already outdated. New technical teaching aids have appeared. Workplaces of school children and teachers must meet the most modern technical requirements, must be connected to high-speed internet, and if necessary, workplaces should be equipped with special technical means, such as special keyboards, visualizers, and etc. In addition, we are planning to create a federal digital educational platform for students with special educational needs.
Второе важное для нас направление – это научно-методическое сопровождение дистанционного обучения. Мы понимаем, как компьютерные технологии влияют на здоровье школьников, физическое и психологическое. Нам необходимо понимать, как должен быть организован процесс получения образования в дистанционном формате, чтобы минимизировать негативные влияния от постоянного пребывания в сети интернет. Для этого Россия проводит научные исследования.
The second important issue for us is the scientific and methodological support of distance learning. We must understand how computer technologies affect the health of school children, physical and psychological. How the process of obtaining education in a distance format should be organized to minimize the negative impacts of being online. In order to understand that, Russia conducts scientific research.
Наша задача – внимательно изучить и российский, и зарубежный опыт и предложить решения по развитию научных исследований и прикладных разработок в области дистанционного образования детей с особыми образовательными потребностями. Ни для кого не секрет, что важной составляющей образования детей с особыми образовательными потребностями является коррекционные занятия и психологическая поддержка. В дистанционном формате в полном объеме организовать такую помощь достаточно сложно. Нам важно понимать, как повысить эффективность таких занятий.
Our task is to carefully study Russian and foreign experience and propose solutions for the development of scientific research and applied developments in the field of distance learning for children with special educational needs. It is no secret that an important component of the education for children with special educational needs is correctional classes and psychological support. It is quite difficult to organize such assistance in a remote format. It is important for us to understand how to improve the effectiveness of such classes.
Наконец, нам требуется планомерная работа с родителями и педагогами по вопросам организации дистанционного обучения, начиная с элементарной компьютерной грамотности и заканчивая работой в современных цифровых образовательных ресурсах и созданием таких ресурсов.
Finally, systematic work with parents and teachers is required on the organization of distance learning, from basic computer literacy to work with modern educational resources and creation of such platforms.
Мы уверены, что только совместная работа всего образовательного сообщества, поддержка государства и родителей позволят эффективно организовать дистанционное обучение школьников с особыми образовательными потребностями. И подводя итоги, хочу сказать, что Россия считает в нынешних условиях эпидемиологической ситуации организацию дистанционного образования обучающихся с особыми образовательными потребностями вынужденной временной мерой, в то же время помощником традиционного очного образования. Также дистанционное образование и дистанционные технологии развивают возможность получения ребенком инклюзивного образования без отрыва от семьи, поскольку инклюзия в российском законодательстве – это получение качественного, учитывающего особые образовательные потребности ребенка образования в образовательной организации, максимально близко расположенной к месту проживания семьи.
We are confident that the joint work of the entire educational community, the support of the state and parents will effectively organize distance learning for school children with special educational needs. And in conclusion, I would like to add that Russia considers in current situation, epidemiological situation, organization of distance learning for students with special educational needs as restrained and only to be an assistant of the traditional education. In Russia, we develop distance technologies to provide quality education for the students without separating them from the family. Inclusion in Russian Federation, it means receiving of the quality education, which considers the requests for special needs students not to separate them from the place of their family, place of living of their family.
Таким образом, я коротко рассказала об основных направлениях Российской Федерации и деятельности государства по развитию дистанционного образования. Спасибо огромное за возможность поучаствовать в таком важном мероприятии.
And so that I have covered most of the state and the national projects, which are forwarded towards the inclusion and education for students with special educational needs. Thank you very much for your attention.
Dear Julia, thank you so much to be together with us today and for sharing experience of the Russian Federation. It's very important to have information from the first hands and to understand the state of the art, challenges and demands of the educational environment in terms of inclusivity, inclusive education. And also my special thanks for sharing with us your vision of the Ministry of Education and plans for the future for improving the situation in the inclusive education. This plan is covering absolutely all areas, including infrastructure, curriculum development and changes, teachers professional development, assessment, and they can hear, as you mentioned, even relations between children and parents. So it's very important. Thank you very much for this important, I would say, policy view in this presentation. Also, I would like to thank Alexander for translation. Thank you so much. Dear colleagues, and now I just want to say that we have a special guest and a special speaker of our section today. Let me introduce to you our colleague. He is interim director of the International Bureau of Education. I'm glad to provide the floor and the screen to Mr. Yudu from IBE. Yao, the floor is yours.
I don't know if you guys can see me.
Yes, we can see you very well.
I cannot see myself, but it doesn't matter. Dear colleagues, I would like to say good morning to everybody. And above all, start by thanking my friend and colleague, Mr. Tao, the director of IITU in Moscow, and his colleagues. Thank you to you, Natalie, for having pushed everybody and put this together. You did a great work. Congratulations. And I would also like to thank all the people who intervened as panelists. Yes, as you saw, IBE, we are very happy to be part of this. And you saw the presentation of my colleague Renato, who somehow said everything that I was to say. But I just will take 1 minute, 1 or 2 minutes from your time to just share 1 or 2 ideas about this very important thematics, because I'm very happy that you have chosen this thematic. It puts emphasis and it gives a meaning to, you know, in the SDGs, we say leaving no one behind. But most of the time, we forget the most forgotten people, who are people living with disabilities. So it's always good when you have opportunity to put light on them. As you all know, Renato said it, IBE mandate is a focus on curriculum. And, but we want to work on inclusivity and inclusiveness of curriculum. Because for us, we want to really put it in the framework of leaving no one behind. The curriculum should benefit to all learners from 0 to 70 or more. So whatever situation in which you are, curriculum should benefit from you. So IBE, we have decided to focus our curriculum as a specific, to have a specific axis on the curriculum for people living with disabilities, because they are left behind in the solution provided. You know, during the COVID, all the countries try to find means for education continuity. But when you look at it properly, none of the countries, almost none of the countries, developing countries, have thought of people with disabilities, because we've we did not find it to be urgent. So the emergency was how to save the school for, between brackets, normal learners. And once again, people with disability were forgotten in this education continuity solutions that were proposed by countries. And this, we should fight again it, because it's very important. And for us in IBE, one of the key areas we are going to work on in partnership with IITE is the inclusivity in curriculum in terms of access of people with disability to digital skills. Access to ICT for us is very, very key. So how best are we reflecting? And this is the mandate of IITE, to reflect so that we find means so that people, whatever their disability is, they have to have access to ICT. So we have to propose solutions to them. And IITU is working on that. And we will really collaborate with you in the area of curriculum for people with disabilities in the area of digital skill. Is very important for us. And another point I would like also to underline is that in many countries, when we talk about inclusive education, we put more accent on physical inclusion of people, making sure everybody is in class, etc. And have children in class to learn. That's the physical inclusion. But one aspect that we don't talk a lot is about the qualitative inclusion, quality inclusion, in terms of learning, in terms of learning acquisitions, because you all agree with me that a boy that is in classroom and he completes primary school without not having the minimum competence and skills, this boy, we can say that he was not included. He was physically included, but he did not learn anything. So it means that it's an exclusion. He has been excluded from learning, even if physically he was there. And this is a key point that will take us to really think of the issue of learning acquisition in terms of inclusion, how to improve the quality of learning, make sure that all people really learn to satisfy the competency needs. So in that context, I would also like to add one quick point on the fact that when we talk about inclusivity for children with disabilities, it should not start only in classes. It should start working with the families to build confidence and change some stereotypes about kids with disabilities. You know, in many families, unfortunately today in Africa, parents hide some kids who have disability, and they don't send them to school because they think it is useless. So if you want to fight for the inclusive education for the people with disabilities, you have to track them from the families. So we have to have this continuum on working from families and then make sure that they will come to school before we ensure the skills that we are going to give to them. You know, let me just give you one quick example of something that happened when I was in Abidjan about young people with disability and schools. There was a census. I don't know if that's the right word. Recensement populaire de la population. It's census, isn't it? A census when we count the number of people anyway. We call it recensement de la population in French. But during the census, we fight it. So on the template that the young people who go from family to family, there was one indicator on the quality of the kids. For instance, when they come to your family, you have the mother, the father, you have the kids. They will ask you, where are the kids? Because they want to see them physically to know what is the physical state, and then point it on the sheet. But when we had the results, we saw that the number of young people, learners with this, children with disability was very low. And we thought that it was not normal. When we asked them why, one of them told us, it's because the first two families where he went with his template, when he asked the father or the mother, just say, yeah, we are 6 in the family, I am here with my husband or here with my wife, and we have 3 kids. And when he say, can I see them? They will say, why do you want to see my kids? You don't know, I have to also note whether the person has a disability and what it is, because the Ministry of Education would like to offer education solutions to them. They have to know how much they are. So, and the parent will just get angry. So you think that my kids are disabled? What do you want to say? You see, so the reaction of the families, the two first family where he went, because of that, when he went to the other family, he did not dare asking the question because he was afraid of being, so this means that there is a work to do to make sure we really are tracking them, to track them really in the families and before we bring them to school. Finally, I would just want to say that drawing lesson from COVID, and I take this point with, from the presentation of Professor Drav Patel. He said that because of COVID, many learners lost a lot of knowledge. He's totally right. What I want to add to that, it's because of the limit of face-to-face learning, as we know, and also it's because, for instance, I take the case in majority of countries in Africa, school stopped around February, March. And in May, they opened majority, May, June, majority start opening school. They open school because they do not want to lose the academic year. So they open school for 2 more months. So from October to March, and then from May to July, it's less than 9 months. So IBE, what we have decided, not only we are going to put a big accent on digitalized curriculum for learners, for teacher training, etc. This, because digitalized curriculum for distance learning can be one solution to build the resilience of education systems. So this is one area. The second area is that we are going to put emphasis on working for condensed curriculum, a condensed curriculum for all levels. For instance, you take primary school in French countries, French-speaking countries, primary school is 6 years. So what we are going to propose is a condensed curriculum of the minimum competencies and skills to be acquired in 3 months instead of 9 months, for instance, so that the countries will have the 9 months curriculum for the year and also have a 3-month curriculum that will be there in case, and that one will contain the minimum of competencies to get in case of emergency, in case of anything you think. So that because unfortunately with this climate change, this kind of pandemic or catastrophe will continue to come. So we'll make sure the countries have a condensed curriculum that they can use in case of emergency to save the school year without losing the minimum qualifications and competencies that the learner needs to acquire. So this is one area that is very important for us, and we are going to really put accent on it and work with our member states and with experts like you who have just made the presentations. We will think that you can be resource persons for us. I will make sure we will make sure with our friend Tao, Natalie, and the police that we have your contacts, because we are really going to work on that aspect with you guys. I would like to thank you very much for your attention. Merci.
Dear Yao, thank you so much for your aspiration, I would say. Thank you for mentioning such very important areas such as curriculum change and quality assurance, which is very important to our, I would say, after pandemic life and inclusion, and also very important things related to the families, related to the parents and their attitude to education and inclusive education in general. Thank you for this, and we rely on the future collaboration with IBE on different issues, including curriculum design for distance education of persons with disabilities. Dear colleagues, now we we have only 10 minutes for a short discussion, and let me start with let me pick up some questions which came to us, and I will start from some general questions. And my first question, the first question is from Filipa Idogo, who is asking, what is the role of the teacher in the actualization of inclusive education in post-COVID-19? In post-COVID-19 life, I would say. So what is the role of the teacher? I think that this is a kind of general general question, and we need to have more discussions on it. But probably we can have the opinion of our expert board. And who would like to start with? Yes, Renato, please.
Yes, I think that that's a very extremely crucial question, because we are in a moment of rethinking the roles and the responsibility of teachers, learners, communities, families, all of the people in the system. And I think that we have to go from the paradigm that teachers implement curricula pedagogy to idea that teachers co-develop curriculum and pedagogy. I mean, that teachers are the main policy makers in the classrooms.
Oh, yes.
And they have to be empowered to effectively take the most critical, crucial decisions about how to support the learning process of the learner. In that sense, I think that the other point I'd like just to say 1 second is that teachers also have to be empowered to produce knowledge. I mean, this area is not only a problem of taking technology, but producing resources to customize to the needs of the learners. So we have to change the paradigm of being like consumers of technology, educational technology, to be producer of educational technology. And that's a big paradigm, educational paradigm, that is very much aligned with this idea of what Mr. Ido has mentioned about a digitalized curriculum. I mean, there have to be a change in the way teachers play the role. Thank you, Natalie.
Yes, thank you, Renata. In general, I agree with you. If somebody is willing to add something concerning the teacher's role, I don't see. Okay. Yes.
Natalie? Yeah, I agree. I agree with Renato, and what I think is the teachers play the role of not only the participation in the post pandemic, and also like the teacher is also played the connector role in the post time, because like the teachers are trained and supported to remotely teach children with disabilities, and ensuring that the caregivers are supported as well. And also, like, the teachers need to improve their technical and also their knowledge to provide the student with special needs their personalized service, I think. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you very much, Manging. I think that summarizing, we can say that we can think about the changing role of the teacher during the pandemic and after pandemic times. Yes. Okay, thank you. I will move to the next question. And then next question came from Jude Clark, who is asking, what is the panelist's opinion of non-linear learning? Do they see it is essential to personalization and inclusion? And the meaning of that is the following: by designing, learners can navigate their own way through the learning and assessment. So Jude is asking about non-linear education, non-linear learning. Do you think it is essential and important for personalization and inclusion? Who can answer this question? Probably Dhruv.
I was just going to say, in my opinion, I think providing e-learning content which is very structured, sometimes with the kind of young people we work with, they really need a guidance and they need somebody to guide them through. So I think it's very much, we actually use the resources and let our teacher, a physical teacher, to bring those resources for the learner concerned. So that's where having a complete set of a program for, say, this particular topic may not be right for them. A lot of resources where the teacher listens and understands the barriers and then puts those together is where the teacher needs to be. So the question before and where the role of the teacher is very different to just being a didactic teacher now.
Exactly.
Yes, please, Renato. Thank you, Dhruv. Thank you.
I totally agree with Dhruv. I just add one element that we have to take into account in this more policy discussion about education. Our systems of education are structured in a way that doesn't allow many times to the progression of the learner in a more a smooth way, because we have these barriers. We have the barriers between primary and secondary, or we have these curricular or pedagogical barriers. And we are not putting at this, it's not a problem of putting the learner only saying that in a sort of saying we put the learner at the center of education. It's more profound than that. It's putting the progression of the learner in terms that the progression of the learner is very much personalized. I mean, you don't have something that is homogeneous for each learner. So how the system accommodates to the diversity of progression of learners is something that should be in the top policy agenda of countries.
Yes, thank you so much, dear colleagues, dear experts, for your clear answers. I don't know if I have some more time for picking up one more question from our participant. This is from Renata, and the question is, how can the teacher help the parents to guide their children with special needs? How teacher can help the parents, please?
Can I
yes,
say something
please,
on that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's you know, the notion of a teacher today. COVID has shown us that we have to widen the notion of teacher and have a wider definition. Teacher, I teacher as facilitator, as coach, as the person who helps for learning. In that definition, parents at home, even illiterate parents in families, rural areas, because when you see the role that the parent played during the COVID, almost all parents became teachers because the school was closed, and at home we were to help our kids. Some did it with pleasure, some was really nervous, some were, but the majority of the parents were happy to discover some skills or some pleasure of supporting the kids, and they need, and some want to continue even after Corona. Some are willing to continue that role. We have to see how we can capacitate them to continue to play that role. But what I want to put emphasis on is that, you know, these people, children with disabilities, in a family, and for instance, an illiterate family in a village, when they have a child, they will not send the child to school. But what we can do is that through our literacy programs, we can think of some minimum modules for the parents in local languages on how to take care of a child with disability at home. This will be interesting to propose to families during, because the majority of these countries, they have literacy program for adults. So we can include that, a module or some thing in the curriculum of that, so that parents are skilled to take care at home of children with disabilities. It's another possibility. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yao, for your clear answering the question. I just want to say that unfortunately we came to the end of our breakout session, and it's not possible for me to take other questions from the participants. I hope that in future we will have more opportunities in the framework of the Mobile Learning Week, also and in other conferences, to discuss such issues. And let me say that today it has been quite a journey for all of us, and we learned a lot from our experts, from our panelists who shared with us experience of inclusive education and using information and communication technologies during and after COVID-19. And as a conclusion, I may say that it is still need to pay attention for rising awareness for such a topic. It's also necessary to define policy measures in different countries and continents for development of inclusive educational practices. And let me thank all of you, all of our colleagues across countries and continents for your efforts, aspiration, and patience. It was a great pleasure for me to discuss such important issues today with all of you, and I hope to stay in touch with you in the future and to have more discussions and more collaboration on this area.